In this episode, we're going to go over tubular locks, what they are, how to tension them, and how to pick them. Hey folks, welcome to Pugs Picks Locks. If you're new here, feel free to click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you'll always be notified when I release new content like this. And if you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Click that like button and then leave a question or a comment down below if you have one. I am always happy to engage with you in the comment section, either to answer questions or to receive your feedback. I don't always get everything right. So did I get something wrong? Is there something I could do differently? Something I could do better? Please let me know. I'm always looking to learn from you so that I can expand my skill set, expand my knowledge base, and provide you with better and better content. Okay, let's dive into this video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at this tubular lock, which is representative of how tubular locks work in general. This particular lock is a 5/8 inch lock from Admiral locks. 5/8 inch is a pretty typical size for tubular locks, and they have many applications. I first encountered them back in the late 70s, early 80s when I was a kid learning how to pick locks, and I was not the most upstanding citizen at the time. I was a bit of a juvenile delinquent. And I first encountered these on those kryptonite bike locks. And you'll still see them used for bike locks quite frequently. And I remember when they were first introduced back then that they were touted as being unpickable. And so, of course, being the juvenile delinquent that I was, I had to learn how to pick them, and I apologize if your bicycle ever went missing. It may or may not have been me. So, my criminal history aside, never pick locks that aren't yours or that are in use. Remember the rules of Locksport. I did not follow them when I was a kid. I apologize. All right. The other applications that you'll find these in are for things like filing cabinets or display cases or vending machines or toolboxes, storage boxes, things like that. They're actually fairly common. They just aren't quite as typical as what we think of as being a normal or typical pin tumbler lock, like on this master lock number 5. Standard pin tumbler lock. All the pin stacks are arranged in a straight line inside the body, inside the core. The key looks like this, with the bitting, with the peaks and valleys to raise the key pins to the correct height, to push the driver pins past the shear line so that the core can turn. We know how they work, right? These tubular locks, however, work on the exact same principle. They are pin tumbler locks. Obviously, the key is going to look very different. Instead of being a straight line, the key is fashioned in a tubular circular shape. And we have bitting along the outside, these cutouts in the outside of the key. Those are what engage with the key pins and push the key pins down far enough to push the drivers down past the shear line so that the core can turn. And if we take a look at our core, you can actually see the tops of the key pins underneath that outer ring. I'm going to put a diagram of the tubular lock up on the screens. So maybe a more cutaway view will show you a little bit better how this is working, how the pins are arranged and such. But the pins are arranged in a circle around this outer ring as opposed to in a straight line like in that master lock number 5. The pin stacks themselves are inside this tubular body, hence tubular lock. So yeah, and the way that the key works, you'll note that there's a notch here in the outer ring, 2 notches in the outer ring actually, one at the open position at 12 o'clock and one at the closed position at 3 o'clock. And there's also a notch in this center post. And this center post is an extension of the plug. So in order to turn the plug, you need to have the protrusion that you see inside the lock, inside the key, pardon me. That protrusion right there on the inside engages with this notch here on the center post, and that allows the core to turn. This protrusion here on the outside of the key, that protrusion engages with this notch at the 12 o'clock position or this notch at the 3 o'clock position. And the way that works is that protrusion goes into the notch, and then when you turn the key, it goes into the notch. Get that in focus if I can. And then when you turn the key, that protrusion is now trapped underneath the outer ring, and that is what keeps the key at the correct depth to push all the key pins down far enough to keep them below the shear line until you get to the open position, in which case you can then remove the key. So that's how the key interacts with the notches in the ring and the center post. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw this in the vise, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to tension and pick this. Normally, to tension a pin tumbler lock, a conventional pin tumbler lock, we would have tension tools like a standard L wrench here for bottom of the keyway tension, right? Put in the bottom of the keyway and you tension the lock there. Or you might have a pry bar for top of the keyway tension that you would put in the top of the keyway and then tension the lock like that. I don't have the correct size for this master lock, but you get the idea, right? And so, but we can't use these tools with a tubular lock. It just doesn't, I mean, you can see inside the tubular lock that we need to turn just that plug, just the center post in order to turn the lock. And you can see that this top of the keyway tension tool does not allow that to happen, right? And we can see that the bottom of the keyway tension tool, I mean, how do you even get that to stay in the notch, right? Or get in the notch and stay in the notch. So there's a couple approaches here that you can take. One approach is to take a piece of wire or an old Allen wrench or something like that, and then file/hammer it down so that it's a perfect square that fits into that notch, and then you can turn it. And that's absolutely a perfectly fine way to go. The other way to go is to use a tension tool, a tubular lock tension tool like this. There's a lot of manufacturers and they're commercially available. And the way that works is that this protrusion here, this thicker protrusion here, let's try to keep everything in focus. This thicker protrusion here, it goes into the notch in the center post, and then this angled, narrower protrusion here slides in between the post, center post, and the outer ring, and then kind of bites down on the center post so you can apply tension. This particular tool is a goat wrench from Sparrows. I believe that it was designed in conjunction with Lock Noob, one of my favorite YouTube Locksport personalities. And I have a love-hate relationship with this tool. I absolutely love the functionality. This side works perfectly well. It's great for tubular locks that have a notch in the center post, like this one. And then for tubular locks that do not have that notch in the center post, you can use the other side, where this little flag that's sticking out, that actually goes into the notch at the 12 o'clock position, goes underneath the outer ring, and engages with a mechanism there that allows you to turn the core. So from a functionality point of view, this tool is fantastic. From an ergonomic design point of view, this tool is horrid. And I have no idea why Sparrows and Lock Noob would go about designing a tool that has a sharp, pointy end and a rounded end like this. The sharp, pointy end, you can see, is already putting a dent in my index finger. If we can get the camera to focus. I mean, literally, right where you need your finger to be to tension it, you have a sharp, pointy end that's going to dig in. What the hell were they thinking? And then this soft, rounded side, if we put it in, we tension it, right where my thumb is, your thumb can slide right off, and that pops the tool right out of the lock. I don't understand what they were thinking when they designed this tool. It's just not a good design. It's not comfortable to hold, etc. Okay, my whining aside, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there. Sorry, Lock Noob, and sorry, Sparrows. I actually really do like this from a functionality point of view. All right, so how to tension and pick a tubular lock. So just like any other pin tumbler lock, the idea is you tension the core, and then you look for any pins that are binding, and you lift up on them to set them. You manipulate the pins to set the pin. So we have our tension, and then it's the exact same process of manipulating the individual pins. So instead of using a hook, like I might with that master lock, number 5, although some people, you can use a hook. I mean, I like, you can see that I can reach in with a hook and manipulate the pins, right? So you can use a hook. I just find it ergonomically really awkward. And so what I am using is this wonderful feeler / probe / decoder from Southord. And if you go to their website and look for a feeler / probe / decoder, you will not find one. Because this actually used to be a Pagoda pick. And Pagoda hooks are my favorite hook. It's the first one I go to, and you can see that the tip has broken off. And that broken tip has given me this wonderful tool that I use for decoding combination locks, that I use to feel pins on the inside of a lock, and I use as a probe to push down on the pins in tubular locks. So I apologize for the camera angle. I really don't have a better camera angle that I can do here. So my hands are actually going to get in the way. I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way of your view of the lock as much as possible, but just the nature of things is my hands are going to cover up the lock at times. So I apologize for that. So what I'm doing here is I am applying very light tension. And the reason why I'm applying very light tension is these cheap cabinet locks, they have very poor tolerances. And so the pins are a little bit gritty. And And so in order to get the feedback that I need and still be able to set the pins, it has to be light tension. And so I'll demonstrate that here with pin 7. So it's gritty, and if I use hard tension, it's hard to kind of depress the pin, and I run the risk of oversetting it. So if I use light tension, however, and I push straight down on the pin, I'm able to set it. And you heard that was more of a thunk than a typical shear line click. So let me do that again. That is what it sounds like, because that is set now. That is what it sounds like for the most part when I set a pin. Instead of having that nice shear line click, I'm getting more of a thunk. And there's one of the reasons for that is the poor tolerances in this lock, the sloppy tolerances in this lock. And the other reason for that is that the driver pins, I believe, are tapered. I'd have to actually destructively gut this lock in order to take a look inside, but I'm 90% sure I'm going to find tapered driver pins. And with tapered driver pins, that means that I'm actually going to have to pick each pin more than once. So basically all I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply my really light tension. I'm going to set the pin. I'm going to go 7. There we go. That's set. You heard the thunk. And now I know it's set because when I tap the top of it, it is slightly springy. It has like a millimeter or so of travel, not even a millimeter of travel, of springy travel. So that's kind of how I know that it's set, and also kind of how I know that it's a tapered pin. Before it's set, it's resting state. Let me actually do resting state first. So let's go over the pin states. Resting state is springy travel all the way through, several millimeters worth of travel all the way through, right? Binding, when I apply my light tension, no travel, right? So it's binding, and then I depress that pin until I get that thunk, and now I have springy travel for only less than a millimeter or so. So I'm gonna, then after, so basically this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to touch each pin in a circle. I'm just going to go anti-clockwise in a circle, touching each pin in turn. And there's 7 pins in this lock. I failed to say that before, but there are 7 pins in this lock. So I'm going to just go through and touch each pin. So here's pin 6, springy travel all the way through. Here's pin 5, it is binding, thunk, and now springy travel for like a millimeter or so. So that's set. Pin 4 is springy travel all the way through. Pin 3, springy travel all the way through. Pin 2, springy travel all the way through. Let's see if I can get my hand out of the way so you can actually maybe see that. See, springy travel all the way through. And then pin 1, binding, thunk, and a little bit of core movement that time. And if I tap the top of that, teeny bit of springy travel. Go back to pin 7. A lot of core movement. Set it a second time. Pretty sure that's a tapered pin. Had to set it twice. And I got a lot of core movement off the second time through. And you're going to just keep going around in circles until you get the open. Until all the driver pins are below the shear line so the plug can rotate smoothly, or rotate to the next position. The thing about that is you're going to go around maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 times, generally speaking. And then if you have security pins, or if the core is a sprung core, like an American Lock 7200, Series 7200 padlock that has a sprung core. It has a tubular lock core, and it is a sprung core. So your tension, you're fighting the spring. There is no spring in this core. So security pins and or a sprung core, you might have to make as many as 10 or more trips around the pins. Okay, so I'm gonna pin 6 is still springy travel. Pin 5 still feels set, just a teeny bit of springy travel. Pin 4 is binding. So thunk and a little bit of core movement. And now when I tap it, just a teeny bit of springy travel. Pin 3, springy travel. Pin 2, a lot of springy travel. Pin 1 still feels set. Pin 7 is binding again. So, pick got stuck. So another thunk, and now that feels set. Pin 6 is binding now. So another thunk, core movement. And pin 5 still feels set. Pin 4, binding. So a click, a thunk, and a little bit of core movement. Pin 3 feels set. Pin 2, binding. And we have our open. So celebratory wiggle. Yay, celebratory wiggle, since we can't do a swivel. And then we turn it, and hey, it didn't turn all the way to the open position. It only turned 45 degrees instead of turning 90 degrees of the open position. What gives? Because the pins are arranged in a circle. When you rotate the core, if we don't have a key in there or something else depressing all the pins at the same time, when you turn it, the pins, when they get to the next position over, are going to pop back up. And that's just what happened here. So you're going to have to pick this lock. You're going to have to pick a tubular lock multiple times to get it to the open position. Now, thankfully for this lock, we only have to pick it twice because it's a 90-degree turn to get it to the open position. And there are 7 pins. So that means each time there is no pin stack at the 12 o'clock position. Now, right now when you look in there, there is a key pin sitting over the 12 o'clock position, but there is no pin stack beneath it. So that pin is effectively doing nothing. That pin is effectively dead. It's not doing a darn thing. So we're going to have to pick it. So you pick it once, get 45 degrees. Pick it a second time, 90 degrees, because there are 7 pins. If there were more pins, and you can have ones that are keyed for 9 pins or more, or less. But in this case, it's 7. So we're going to have to pick this lock again to get it to the next position, which is actually the full open position. And it's the exact same process. You just go through. Okay, so that's pin 6. Get on top of it. That's springy travel all the way through. Although I did get a thunk out of it that first time I touched it. So, but that's a lot of springy travel. So I don't think that's set. Pin 5 is binding. Thunk and a teeny bit of core movement. Pin 4 is springy. And you'll note I did not touch pin 7 because I don't need to. There's no pin stack beneath it. There's no driver pin that needs to go to the shear line. Pin 4 is springy. Pin 3 is binding. Little bit of core movement. And then pin 2, springy travel. Pin 1, click and core movement. Pin 6, again skipping 7. Pin 6, Sorry, my hand's in the way. Springy. Pin 5 still feels set. Pin 4 still springy, travel all the way through. Pin 3 feels binding, click or thunk, and a little bit of core movement. Pin 2, pin 1, and then back to pin 6. So this is basically what you're just going around in circles. Core movement, thunk and core movement out of 6. Pin 5 still feels set. Pin 4 is binding now. So that was a thunk, and now that feels set. Pin 3 feels set. Pin 2, click and core movement. Teeny bit of core movement. And pin 1. Is that binding, or am I just at a bad angle? Nope, that feels set. So then pass back to pin 6 and thunk, and it's open. So celebratory wiggle, and then now we are at the fully open 3 o'clock position. And there you have it. That's a tubular lock and how to tension it using a tensioning tool. Commercially available. This one is a goat wrench from Sparrows. There's a lot of other tubular lock tensioners available out there. And just a straight probe, decoder, feeler, broken pick, etc. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and leave a comment or a question below. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like this. Until the next video, happy picking y'all.